podcast. In this new channel, we'll be diving deep into discussions about every story we share on this channel in podcast format. It'll be short and sweet. This is just an experiment. Let us know your feedback. If the feedback is positive, then we might post more there. The link to the podcast for this story is in the description and in the comment section. Now let's begin this story. The kitchen of Le Petit Jardin buzzed with activity as Guillermo, a 38-year-old sous chef, meticulously arranged his mise en place. His knife moved with practiced precision, dicing shallots into perfect, uniform cubes. The rhythmic sound of chopping briefly paused as his phone vibrated against the stainless steel countertop. "Mr. Castillo? This is Mrs. Rodriguez, Megan's science teacher." Guillermo's knife stilled, his grip tightening imperceptibly. "Is everything all right?" "More than all right. I'm calling about Megan's project on sustainable urban farming. It's truly exceptional, Mr. Castillo. The innovation, the attention to detail, it's far beyond what we typically see at this grade level." Pride swelled in Guillermo's chest, momentarily pushing aside the nagging worry that had taken root there lately. "That's wonderful to hear. Megan's been working so hard on it. It shows. We'd like to enter it in the state science fair, with your permission, of course." Of course, Guillermo said, already imagining Megan's face when he told her the news. "Thank you for letting me know." As soon as he ended the call, Guillermo's fingers flew across his phone screen, dialing Caroline. The call went straight to voicemail. He left an excited message, his words tumbling out in a rush. "Caroline, call me back when you get this. Mrs. Rodriguez just called about Megan's project. It's amazing news." He fired off a quick text as well, hoping Caroline would see it soon. The lack of response gnawed at him, an itch he couldn't quite scratch. Pushing the feeling aside, Guillermo returned to his prep work, determined to focus on the evening ahead. As he worked, snatches of conversation from the servers setting up the dining room drifted into the kitchen. "Swear I saw him at the Hotel Belmont. With some woman, definitely not his wife. Nick's always been a player, but a married woman. That's low." Guillermo's ears pricked up at the mention of Nick, the restaurant's owner. He shook his head, dismissing the gossip. There was no time for idle chatter, not what a food critic expected that evening. Turning his attention back to the stove, Guillermo began working on a new dish he'd been perfecting. The aroma of searing scallops and herb-infused butter filled the air as he focused on creating the perfect sear, golden brown, and caramelized. This dish had to be flawless. The future of Le Petit Jardin and his career might depend on it. The clock on the dashboard read 1:07 a.m. as Guillermo pulled into his driveway. Exhaustion weighed heavy on his shoulders, but satisfaction hummed through his veins. The critic's visit had gone well, exceptionally well, if the empty plates and effusive compliments were anything to go by. The house was dark and quiet as he entered, his chef's knife still in his hand from unpacking his kit. He moved through the familiar space with practiced ease, not bothering to turn on the lights. The dim glow of his phone screen was enough to guide him. As he passed through the kitchen, a faint blue light caught his eye. Caroline's laptop sat open on the counter, its screen having flickered to life at his movement. Guillermo frowned. Caroline was usually meticulous about shutting down her computer, especially given her work in human resources. He was about to close the lid when a notification popped up in the corner of the screen. The sender's name made his blood run cold. The preview text burned itself into his retinas. "Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you, Tom." Guillermo's hand hovered over the trackpad, his chef's knife forgotten in his other hand. Every fiber of his being screamed at him not to look, to respect Caroline's privacy, to trust his wife. But the seed of doubt that had been planted weeks ago had suddenly sprouted, its tendrils wrapping around his heart. With a shaking hand, he clicked on the email. The world tilted on its axis as Guillermo read line after line of intimate details, of secret rendezvous, of plans for a weekend getaway. His vision blurred, focus narrowing to individual phrases that felt like physical blows. "The way you taste. Our little hideaway. Can't wait to feel you in my arms again." The knife clattered to the floor, the sound jolting Guillermo out of his daze. He looked down at his trembling hands, then back at the screen. A terrible calm settled over him as he began to systematically search through Caroline's email. Months of correspondence unfurled before him. Hotel receipts, intimate photos. Each new piece of evidence was another nail in the coffin of his marriage. The clock on the nightstand read 3:42 a.m. when Guillermo finally picked up his phone. His finger hovered over the contact labeled Raymond for a long moment before he pressed call. Guillermo? What's wrong? It's the middle of the night, man. Raymond's voice was thick with sleep. I need your help, Ray, Guillermo said, his voice barely above a whisper. He glanced towards the bedroom door, ensuring it was still closed. It's Caroline. She's cheating on me. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. Shit, Guillermo. Are you sure? I found emails, photos. It's bad, Ray. I need proof. Real proof. Can you help me? Of course, man. Of course. I'll start tomorrow. We'll get to the bottom of this. Over the next week, Guillermo lived a double life. At work, he was the same focused, passionate chef he'd always been. At home, he played the role of loving husband and father, all while Raymond worked tirelessly behind the scenes. The evidence piled up. Video footage of Caroline and Nick entering various hotels. Receipts from expensive restaurants. And most damning of all, bank statements showing a steady stream of money being siphoned from their joint account into a secret one in Caroline's name. Guillermo sat in Susan Jacobs' office, staring at the stack of documents before him. The divorce attorney's voice seemed to come from very far away. Protect your assets, custody rights, timeline of events. He nodded mechanically, signing where indicated. As he left the office, Guillermo felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. The die was cast. There was no going back now. That night, as he tucked Megan and Jonathan into bed, Guillermo felt a pang of guilt. Their world was about to be turned upside down, and they had no idea. He pushed the feeling aside. He had to be strong now for them. In the quiet of his home office, Guillermo meticulously documented everything. Every email, every receipt, every bank statement. He created a detailed timeline of Caroline's betrayal, each entry another twist of the knife in his heart. As he worked, Guillermo's mind drifted to the future, to the confrontation that was to come, to the look on Caroline's face when she realized her carefully constructed lies were about to come crashing down around her. He thought of the Boy Scouts and their motto, be prepared. Well, he was prepared now. Prepared for war. Guillermo stood in the kitchen of his home, a far cry from the bustling environment of Le Petit Jardin. His hands, usually occupied with precise knife work or delicate plating, now methodically packed suitcases. Each item of Caroline's clothing, each trinket and memento, was a twist of the knife in his gut. But his face remained impassive, a mask of calm determination. He glanced at his watch. 2 hours until the curtain rose on this macabre play he had orchestrated. The doorbell chimed. Jacqueline and Antonio, Caroline's parents, stood on a porch, confusion evident on their faces. Guillermo dear, Jacqueline said, embracing him. What's this surprise anniversary dinner about? Caroline didn't mention anything. Guillermo's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Oh, you know how she is. Always forgetting the little things. Antonio's handshake was firm, his gaze searching. Everything all right, son? You look tired. Just been busy at the restaurant. Guillermo deflected smoothly. Come in, come in. Megan and Jonathan are excited to see you. As if on cue, the children bounded down the stairs. Megan, at 14, was the spitting image of Caroline at that age. The sight made Guillermo's heart clench. Grandma, Grandpa. Jonathan, all of 10 years old, launched himself into Antonio's arms. Guillermo watched the scene unfold, his mind racing. How many more moments like this would be tainted by what was about to transpire? Kids, he said, his voice steady. Why don't you show your grandparents that new game you've been wanting to play? I'll join you in a bit. As the family moved to the living room, Guillermo retreated to the study. With practiced ease, he set up hidden cameras throughout the house, living room, hallway, kitchen. Each lens a silent witness to the impending confrontation. His phone buzzed. A text from Raymond, target and subject X entering Hotel Belmont. ETA to home. 30 minutes. Guillermo's grip tightened on the phone. 30 minutes. 30 minutes until the life he knew imploded. He moved to the front door, where Caroline's packed suitcases stood in neat rows. A lineup of her betrayal, ready for departure. Taking a deep breath, Guillermo joined his family in the living room. Laughter filled the air as Antonio attempted to understand the rules of the board game spread before them. You're just in time, Dad. Megan called. We're about to start a new round. Guillermo settled into an armchair, his eyes fixed on the door. Perfect timing, he murmured. The click of the front door lock was deafening in Guillermo's ears. He watched, a detached observer in his own home, as Caroline entered. Her hair was disheveled, lipstick smudged, telltale signs of her recent activities. Caroline froze, her eyes widening as she took in the scene before her. Her parents, her children, her husband, all gathered in the living room, staring at her with varying degrees of confusion. And was that accusation in Guillermo's eyes? What's going on? Caroline's voice trembled slightly. Guillermo stood, his movements deliberate. Without a word, he walked to the television and pressed a button on the remote. The screen flickered to life, and suddenly Caroline's secret life was on display for all to see. A montage of her indiscretions played out in high definition, entering hotels with Nick, intimate dinners, stolen kisses, and shadowy corners. The timestamps in the corner of each clip were damning, the most recent from mere hours ago. The room fell silent, save for Megan's quiet sobs. Jonathan clung to his grandmother, his young mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Caroline's face drained of color. Guillermo, I can explain. Can you? Guillermo's voice was cold, detached. Can you explain why you've been lying to me, to our children, for months? Can you explain why you've been stealing from our family? Megan stood on shaky legs, tears streaming down her face. In her hands, she clutched a thick manila envelope. Mom, she choked out, how could you do this to us? With trembling hands, Megan thrust the envelope towards Caroline. Divorce papers. The ultimate evidence of her betrayal. Guillermo slowly removed his wedding ring, the gold band that had symbolized their vows, their love, their family. He tossed it to Caroline, the soft clink as it hit the floor echoing in the silent room. We're done, he said, his voice devoid of emotion. Your things are packed. Leave. Caroline's composure cracked. She looked wildly around the room, searching for a sympathetic face. Mom, Dad, please. But Jacqueline had turned away, unable to look at her daughter. Antonio sat rigid, his face a mask of disappointment and shock. Guillermo, please, Caroline begged. Let's talk about this. What about the kids? As if on cue, Jonathan's small voice piped up, thick with tears. Does this mean Mom doesn't love us anymore? The question hung in the air, a dagger to everyone's heart. Guillermo moved to his son, enveloping him in a protective embrace. Your mom made some very bad choices, buddy. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Caroline reached out towards her children, but Megan flinched away. Don't touch me, she hissed. You're not my mother. Not anymore. The room crackled with tension, a powder keg ready to explode. Guillermo stood at the center, a pillar of cold fury. His next words fell like hammer blows. I've frozen our joint accounts and credit cards, he said, his voice steady. You'll find you only have access to your secret fund. Caroline's face paled further, if that was possible. Guillermo wasn't done. He reached for a thick folder on the coffee table, flipping it open. Luxury hotels. Expensive gifts. A secret apartment. Each statement was punctuated by the slap of paper as Guillermo laid out financial records. You've been quite busy, Caroline. All on our dime. Jacqueline, who had been silent until now, found her voice. It trembled with a mixture of anger and disappointment. I raised you better than this, Caroline. How could you destroy your family like this? Caroline turned to her father, desperation in her eyes. Daddy, please. But Antonio, the retired judge, cut her off. His voice was cold, judicial. You need to leave, Caroline. No. And contact a lawyer. You're going to need one. Guillermo gestured to the suitcases by the door. Everything's packed. I suggest you go. Caroline stumbled towards the door, her world collapsing around her. As she reached for the handle, Megan's voice stopped her. I hope he was worth it, Mom. I hope destroying our family was worth it. The door closed behind Caroline with a finality that echoed through the house. Guillermo turned to his children, his heart breaking at the pain in their eyes. I know this is hard, he said softly. We're going to get through this together. I promise. He pulled them close, feeling their bodies shake with sobs. Over their heads, he met the eyes of Jacqueline and Antonio. The older couple looked shell-shocked, grappling with the sudden implosion of their family. We'll get them into therapy, Guillermo said. Whatever support they need, they'll have it. As the night wore on, Guillermo moved through the house like a ghost. He removed photos of Caroline from the walls, packed away her remaining belongings. Each item was a memory, a dream, now tainted. In the quiet of the night, as his children finally slept and his in-laws had retreated to the guest room, Guillermo sat in the kitchen. The same kitchen where, not so long ago, he had discovered Caroline's betrayal. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid catching the low light. As he raised it to his lips, he caught sight of his reflection in the window. The man staring back at him was changed, hardened. The Boy Scout was gone. In his place stood a man who had been betrayed, a man who had uncovered lies, a man who had torn his own life apart to protect what mattered most. Guillermo raised his glass in a mock toast to his reflection. "To new beginnings," he murmured. The whiskey burned as it went down, a physical echo of the pain in his heart. But as he set the glass down, Guillermo felt a steely resolve settle over him. This was just the beginning. There was more to be done, more truths to uncover, more consequences to mete out. And Guillermo was ready for it all. The leather of Guillermo's briefcase creaked as he set it on the polished mahogany table. The board members of Le Petit Jardin sat in tense silence, their eyes fixed on the chef they had known only as a talented subordinate. Now he stood before them as an avenging angel, his face a mask of grim determination. "Gentlemen, ladies," Guillermo began, his voice steady. "What I'm about to show you will change everything you think you know about this restaurant and its management." With practiced movements, he withdrew a thick dossier from his briefcase. The sound of paper hitting would echoed in the quiet room as he spread out document after damning document. "This," he said, tapping a finger on a particularly incriminating photo, "is your esteemed owner, Nick, with the wife of our head sommelier. And this," he continued, sliding another sheet forward, "is a statement from our former pastry chef, detailing how Nick coerced her into an affair under threat of termination." The board members leaned forward, faces contorting in shock and disgust as they absorbed the evidence before them. Guillermo wasn't done. "But it gets worse," he said, his voice taking on a harder edge. "This is a breakdown of company funds Nick has been misappropriating to finance his extracurricular activities." A balding man at the far end of the table, his face flushed with anger, spoke up. "How did you come by this information, Guillermo?" "Does it matter?" Guillermo countered. "The question you should be asking is, what are you going to do about it?" The room erupted in heated discussion. Guillermo stood back, watching the chaos unfold. He had lit the fuse. Now he just had to wait for the explosion. It didn't take long. Within an hour, a unanimous decision was reached. Nick was to be terminated immediately, his shares in the restaurant frozen, pending further investigation. "Guillermo," the board chairwoman said, her voice tentative, "in light of your loyalty and initiative, we'd like to offer you a partnership in the restaurant." Guillermo allowed himself a small smile. This was the moment he had been waiting for, a culmination of weeks of meticulous planning. "I appreciate the offer," he said, his tone measured. "But I think we both know that's not enough." The chairwoman's eyes widened slightly. "What do you mean?" "I want full ownership," Guillermo stated flatly. "You're sitting on a powder keg, ladies and gentlemen. Nick's indiscretions, the misuse of company funds. Imagine the scandal if this got out." The threat hung in the air, unspoken but palpable. "You can't be serious," a board member sputtered. "I've never been more serious in my life," Guillermo replied. "I've given everything to this restaurant. My time, my talent, my family." His voice caught slightly on the last word, but he pushed on. "I think I've more than earned the right to take the reins." The board members exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, the chairwoman spoke. "We'll need time to discuss this, Guillermo." Significant request." Guillermo nodded, gathering his documents. "Take all the time you need. But remember, every moment you delay is another moment this information could..." As he left the boardroom, Guillermo felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Phase 1 was complete. Now for the fallout. He didn't have to wait long. By the end of the day, word had spread through the restaurant grapevine. Nick was out, disgraced and facing potential legal action. And Caroline, his faithful assistant and paramour, had been collateral damage. Guillermo watched from the kitchen as Caroline, tear-streaked and shaking, cleared out her desk. Their eyes met for a moment, and he saw the realization dawn on her face. This wasn't just about their marriage. This was total annihilation. As Caroline stumbled out of the restaurant for the last time, Guillermo turned back to his staff. "All right, everyone. Show's over. We've got dinner service to prepare for. The kitchen burst into action, but whispers followed Guillermo as he moved through his domain. He was no longer just the talented sous chef. He was the man who had brought down a titan and was poised to take his place. Guillermo smiled to himself as he began prepping for the evening service. The board would cave, he was sure of it. And when they did, he would be ready. Ready to transform Le Petit Jardin into the restaurant he had always dreamed it could be. As he chopped vegetables with practiced precision, Guillermo allowed himself a moment of reflection. The Boy Scout was truly gone now, replaced by a man who knew how to play the game and win. The notification pinged on Guillermo's phone, a shrill herald of impending battle. Another one-star review on Yelp, the 5th this week. The words blurred before his eyes, a now familiar litany of complaints. Food poisoning, poor service, unsanitary conditions. He set the phone down with a sigh, rubbing his temples. The smear campaign had been relentless, a desperate last-ditch effort by Caroline and Nick to salvage their reputations and livelihoods. "Everything all right, Chef?" Sous Chef Maria asked, concern etching her features. Guillermo straightened, schooling his expression into one of calm determination. "Just more of the same, Maria. Nothing we can't handle." But even as he spoke the words, another notification chimed. This one made his blood run cold. Surprise health inspection scheduled for tomorrow morning, the text from his contact at City Hall read. Guillermo's mind raced. This had Nick written all over it. A surprise inspection when the restaurant was most vulnerable, still reeling from the change in management and the barrage of negative press. "Maria," he called out, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Gather the staff. We've got work to do." The next 12 hours were a whirlwind of activity. Every surface was scrubbed until it gleamed, every refrigerator temperature double and triple checked, every piece of equipment meticulously cleaned and calibrated. Guillermo moved through the kitchen like a general, inspecting his troops, barking orders and offering encouragement in equal measure. The staff, sensing the gravity of the situation, worked with a fervor bordering on desperation. As dawn broke, casting a pale light through the kitchen windows, Guillermo surveyed the results of their labor. The kitchen gleamed, a testament to their dedication and teamwork. "Whatever happens today," he addressed his exhausted staff, "know that I'm proud of each and every one of you. We've done everything we can. Now, we face whatever comes next with our heads held high." The health inspector arrived precisely at 8 a.m., a stern-faced woman with a clipboard and a keen eye for detail. Guillermo greeted her with a calm smile, leading her through the restaurant with an air of confidence he didn't entirely feel. Hours ticked by as the inspector combed through every nook and cranny of Le Petit Jardin. The staff held their collective breath, watching anxiously as she made notes and took samples. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the inspector approached Guillermo. Her face was unreadable as she held out a piece of paper. "Congratulations, Chef," she said, a hint of admiration in her voice. "Your establishment has passed with flying colors. In fact, it's one of the cleanest, best-run kitchens I've seen in years." Relief washed over Guillermo like a tidal wave. He accepted the inspection report with a steady hand, thanking the inspector for her thoroughness. As word spread through the restaurant, cheers erupted from the staff. Guillermo allowed himself a moment to bask in their triumph before retreating to his office. He had one more move to make. With careful deliberation, he crafted a press release. It detailed the recent changes in management at Le Petit Jardin, the unfounded smear campaign they had endured, and their triumphant vindication through the surprise health inspection. He ended with an invitation. "To those who have doubted us, to the critics and naysayers, we extend an open invitation. Come, see for yourselves the quality and integrity that define Le Petit Jardin. Our doors, like our books, are open." As he hit send, broadcasting the message to local news outlets and food critics, Guillermo felt a sense of calm settle over him. They had weathered the storm. Now it was time to shine. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, the restaurant was flooded with reservation requests. Food critics and influencers clamor for tables, eager to witness the phoenix rising from the ashes of scandal. Guillermo stood in the kitchen that evening, watching as his staff rose to the occasion, turning out plate after perfect plate. The dining room buzzed with excitement, filled with curious patrons and skeptical critics alike. As the last dessert was plated and sent out, Guillermo gathered his team. "Tonight," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you've proven what I've always known, that we are the best damn restaurant in this city. And after tonight, everyone else will know it too. The staff erupted in cheers and applause. Guillermo looked around at their beaming faces, feeling a surge of pride and affection. They had been through hell together and come out stronger for it. As he walked through the dining room later, shaking hands with satisfied patrons and beaming critics, Guillermo caught sight of his reflection in a mirror. The man looking back at him was different from the one who had discovered his wife's betrayal all those months ago. He was harder, yes, but also more confident, more determined. He was a man who had faced adversity and not just survived, but thrived. A man who had taken everything life had thrown at him and turned it into fuel for success. Guillermo smiled at his reflection, raising an imaginary glass in a silent toast. To new beginnings, indeed. The ballroom of the Grand Hotel sparkled with the light of 1,000 camera flashes. Guillermo stood at the podium, the weight of the Michelin star pin on his lapel a testament to how far he had come. A year ago, he began, his voice steady and clear. I stood in the ruins of what I thought was my life. My marriage had crumbled, my career was in jeopardy, and I didn't know if I'd ever find my way back. The room fell silent, hundreds of eyes fixed on a man who had become a legend in the culinary world. But tonight, Guillermo continued, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. We celebrate not just a star, but a resurrection. Le Petit Jardin isn't just a restaurant. It's a testament to the power of perseverance, of passion, and of surrounding yourself with people who believe in you. As applause filled the room, Guillermo's gaze fell on Megan and Jonathan, seated at a table near the front. Their eyes shone with pride, and for a moment, Guillermo felt his composure waver. He cleared his throat, blinking back the threat of tears. This star, he said, touching the pin on his chest, belongs to every member of my team. To every chef who worked through the night, every server who maintained a smile in the face of adversity, every dishwasher who kept our kitchen running smoothly. More applause, punctuated by cheers from the Le Petit Jardin staff scattered throughout the room. But most of all, Guillermo said, his voice softening, this belongs to my children. Megan, Jonathan, you are the reason I get up every morning. The reason I push myself to be better, to do better. This is for you. As the gala continued around him, Guillermo made his way through the crowd, shaking hands and accepting congratulations. But his mind was already racing ahead, planning the next steps. The following week saw the launch of the Guillermo Castillo Foundation, dedicated to supporting single parents in the culinary industry. As he stood before another crowd, this time of struggling chefs and wide-eyed culinary students, Guillermo felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. Your circumstances do not define you, he told them, his words ringing with the weight of personal experience. They are merely the ingredients life has given you. What matters is what you choose to make with them. The foundation was just the beginning. Months of late nights and early mornings culminated in the release of From Betrayal to Michelin, Guillermo's tell-all cookbook that rocketed to the top of bestseller lists. As he sat in a TV studio, preparing for yet another interview about the book, Guillermo caught a glimpse of a familiar face on a monitor. Caroline, looking haggard and years older than when he had last seen her, was being interviewed on a local news channel in some small town he didn't recognize. And that's why Nick and I decided to make a fresh start here, she was saying, her once confident voice now tinged with desperation. We're just simple folk now, trying to rebuild our lives. Guillermo felt a twinge of something. Not quite pity, not quite satisfaction. He turned away from the monitor, focusing instead on the talking points for his own interview. The true test came on a sunny June afternoon as Guillermo sat in the audience of Megan's high school graduation. His daughter stood at the podium, her valedictorian speech bringing tears to the eyes of those around him. Life doesn't always go as planned, Megan said, her voice strong and clear. Sometimes the people we trust the most let us down. But it's in those moments of betrayal and heartbreak that we find our true strength. Guillermo felt his chest swell with pride as Megan continued. My father taught me that resilience isn't about never falling down. It's about how you get back up. He showed me that our darkest moments can become the catalyst for our greatest triumphs. As Megan's speech drew to a close, Guillermo's eyes swept the auditorium. And there, in the back row, he saw her. Caroline. Their eyes met for a brief moment, a lifetime of emotions passing between them in that split second. But then Megan was descending from the stage, and Jonathan was tugging at his sleeve, and Guillermo turned away. He enveloped his children in a tight embrace, focusing on the bright future that lay ahead of them. Months later, Guillermo stood before a different kind of audience. A group of troubled youth, their eyes wary and distrustful, watched as he demonstrated how to properly julienne a carrot. Cooking, he told them, his knife moving with practiced ease, is about transformation. Taking raw, sometimes bitter ingredients and turning them into something beautiful, something nourishing. He looked up, meeting each of their gazes in turn. Life is no different. We all have raw ingredients to work with. Some of us get a tougher cut than others. But with the right techniques, with patience and perseverance, we can all create something extraordinary. As the class progressed, Guillermo watched the wariness in their eyes slowly give way to interest, then enthusiasm. By the end of the session, even the most reluctant participants were eagerly showing off their newly acquired skills. Guillermo smiled as he cleaned up the kitchen, a sense of contentment washing over him. He had come full circle, from a betrayed husband and struggling chef to a beacon of hope for others facing adversity. As he turned off the lights and locked up the community center, Guillermo paused for a moment, looking up at the star-filled sky. He thought of all the twists and turns his life had taken, all the pain and triumph that had led him to this moment. Be prepared, he murmured to himself, a wry smile tugging at his lips. The Boy Scout motto that had once defined him now held a different meaning. He had been prepared, not for the betrayal, but for the aftermath. Prepared to fight, to rebuild, to transform. Guillermo walked to his car, his step light and purposeful. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to make a difference. And he was ready for all of it. The engine roared to life, and as Guillermo pulled away from the curb, he felt a sense of anticipation for what lay ahead. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. And he couldn't wait to see where it would take him next.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy the story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.